15th of January 1941, a person in the garb of a Muslim priest gets into a car from a house in Elgin Road in Calcutta and drives towards Bihar. In Bihar, this gentleman gets into the Kalka mail train headed for Delhi. 10 days later, a Pathan named Ziauddin is sighted traveling in a truck from Peshawar to Kabul. A few days later, an impeccably dressed Italian, Orlando Mezzotta, travels from Kabul to Berlin via Moscow. Three faces of one man, a man called Subhash Chandra Bose. By now, some of those fighting for freedom had opened up a front in Singapore. The band of fighters was called the Indian National Army. On the 5th of July 1943, Subhash Chandra Bose took over as the Supreme Commander of the INA. And in an historic call, he told his supporters, "Give me your blood and I will give you freedom." His slogan was Delhi Chalo, onwards to Delhi. This slogan kept reverberating till 1945, when the Second World War came to an end. By June 1947, through the India Independence Bill, the Labour government in England had agreed to relinquish power on the basis of dominion status to both India and Pakistan. The horrors of communal carnage and the bloodbath which may have ensued forced the Indian nationalist leaders to reluctantly accept the partition of India. But till the very end, Gandhi argued against this division of the subcontinent. Independent India was born on the midnight of 14th August 1947, but only after another nation, Pakistan, justified on religious grounds, had been carved out of its physical configuration. In spite of this, the new architects of the country committed themselves to secular credentials, and this at a time when mass migrations of refugees was taking place across the borders, when the communal killings had spread its despondency in Punjab and Bengal.
Never before in South Asian history did so few divide so many, and from my point of view, so needlessly. So in that sense, you know, partition was a traumatic experience and a tremendous setback to the secular underpinnings of Indian nationalism, if you like. But having said that, I think India emerged quite strongly out of that trauma, because I think the significance of the decision of the Constituent Assembly to declare India as a democratic secular republic is something which needs to be underlined and which needs to be stressed.
But the fate of the princely states in the subcontinent still remained one of the contentious, unresolved issues. The Chambers of Princes, which had been brought into being by a royal proclamation on the 8th of February 1921, met in Delhi to deliberate upon the fate of the princely states. 2/5 of the country's physical land was with the 562 states, and those taking over the reins of power were concerned that vested interests would ensure not all of them signed the instrument of accession. V.P. Menon, who was then an aide to Sardar Patel, wrote, "It almost seemed that the ship of India's freedom would flounder on the rock of the princely states." Sir Cyril Radcliffe's red ink, ruthlessly marked on a map, had carved two countries, India and Pakistan, where once there existed only one subcontinent. But even before the Radcliffe Award had been announced, other forces were at play. And one view, which was encouraged by a section of the British policymakers, was to allow some of the princely states to declare their independence. That with the withdrawal of the British paramountcy, these states should be given two alternatives: to merge into one of the dominions or to declare themselves independent. The fear that haunted the ruling polity was that India would be balkanized. When the Maharaja of Travancore, under the influence of his Diwan, declared that his state had decided to set up as an independent sovereign state, apprehension arose that other states would adopt a similar attitude and India would be split into fragments.
There had been powerful movements in many of the states. against the princes and for integration with India. And these movements had close links with the Congress or with other political movements, like, for example, the Communist Party was quite active in Hyderabad. As we know, there was this agitation also afterwards. So there had developed from the 1920s onwards close links between the political processes in the states and in British India. So there was an organic link, and it wasn't going to be easy for any prince or British official to actually get